What's up everybody, it's Blaze from Funbox here, and with the release of GMS 2.3.0, I figured I would ask the communities that I'm a part of what kind of tutorial videos they wanted me to create. Naturally, some of them are also subscribers to this channel and watch my videos, and so I got a few questions asking me about the state of the turn-based combat tutorial series that I had announced at the start of the year. To keep things simple, I have an update for you guys at the end of this video. So if you are curious about it and you want to find out more as to what's happened to my little tutorial series, wait until the end. Watch this video straight through to the end. Okay, moving on. One of the suggestions that some of the people made that stood out to me was actually structs and constructors. These are new to GMS 2.3, and so I figured I'd cover them in a fairly beginner-friendly video. If you've worked with structs and constructors in other programming languages, that's great. You've got a head start, which is always an advantage. But keep in mind that these are a little bit different to how you may have written them before. All right, let's take a look at what we are working with. We have two objects and one script. That's all we're going to be working with today. Let's take a look at our controller first, since we're only going to be looking at it once. And all it does is in the create event, it just randomizes everything. Let me center this for you guys so you can see easier. And when we press enter, it creates an instance of O character at some random point in the room. So let's close this off. And now let's take a look at our O character. For O character, we have a create event where we set the my name and my health. Don't worry about this array for now. That's part of my explanation. But basically the my name chooses a random name and sets the health at a random number. We also have a draw event where it draws its own sprite and draws that health and name text right next to it. When we press space, it calls the function add health. Let's take a look at that script now. Okay, here it's very basic. All it does is it just adds health to the character, and that only happens when we press space. Let's try playing this demo of ours and let's see how it looks. All right, here we are in game. I'll press enter, creates a character. And when I press space, it increases the health by 1. Alright, so that's basically what it looks like. Let's create a few more characters, and let's all increase their health. Okay, so we know that that works, and so we can close this out. Alright, let's get into the main bulk of this tutorial. In past versions of Gamemaker Studio, you may have created your objects, whether it's a character or a weapon or a car or whatever objects you have in your game. You may have created them like this top version that we have here, where we name the variable, in this case my name and my health, and then we put whatever code we want to assign it. That works, that's fine. Or you may have used an array where we basically do the same thing. This is okay too. They both work and they both have their uses. They definitely have their uses. The difference between these two methods and say using a struct is that we can basically put all of this information inside of a struct, as well as functions that are limited to only being used with a particular structure, or struct for short. Let's take a look at creating our first struct now. But before we get into that, we can just comment these two lines out since we don't need them anymore. All right, to name a struct, what you're going to need is the struct name itself. I'm going to call mine stat. We also need the assignment operator, or the equal sign. And for the absolute minimum, we need an open and closed curly brace. And that's it. There's your struct right there. The cool thing is, even though this is an empty struct, you can add things as you need them, which is very convenient. Something you can't really do using this method that we have up the top here. And it is very difficult, even though we have a way to do it now in 2.3, to add that to an array that you have here. All right, let's keep going, and we can actually prove that this stat exists in our object by using a debug call. All right, let's test this out. What we're looking for is something to come up here in the output window down the bottom. All right, let's press enter and see what happens. Okay, great, we've spawned a character in, and here on the side we have an empty open and closed brace. Okay, great, it works. We know what it looks like, or what it should look like, and that's enough for me. Let's close this out and let's keep writing our struct out. Let's fill in the information for our name and health. Generally, I would tell people not to copy and paste code, even if it is something that they've already written, But in this case, to keep this video short or as short as possible, I'm just going to do it for now. Okay, I've cleaned that up a bit. Now you can see that we have some errors inside of our struct here, and that is because when we are setting up things like our variables inside of a struct, I'm just going to stick to calling them variables for now, we actually don't use the equal sign. Instead of that, inside of a struct, we use a colon. And when we have multiple items here, like name and health, we don't use a semicolon at the end, we just use a regular comma. Okay, good. That's looking good. We have no errors. Let's try playing our game now. Let's press enter to spawn a character in. And we can see here that we've spawned in a Han character with 7 HP, but the struct down here says Boba with 10 HP. So what's going on here? Well, let's close this out. And what's actually happening is in the draw event, it's drawing my name and my health. These two variables are not the same as these two down here, even though we know that code is read from top to bottom. Now, if you're working with the knowledge that you've learned from Gamemaker Studio in the past, then strictly speaking, by logic, you should just comment this out, and by running the game, it should work. Before I press enter, I can guarantee you that we are going to get an error. And there we go, we can see it here now. It says here that the variable oCharacter.myName is not set before reading it. What does that mean exactly? Now, the thing here is that although we have the variables myName and myHealth inside of our oCharacter, it actually belongs to a separate object. Can you guess the name of that object? If you guessed that the name of the object was stat, then you're absolutely correct. Basically, what a struct is its own object. It's what we would call a lightweight object. To be able to access the myName and myHealth variables, you would have to use dot notation. Let's try doing that now. It's very simple. All you need is the name of the struct followed by a dot. That's it. Let's do the same thing for myHealth. Okay, it's all done. Let's save that out now and let's try running our game. Okay. Here we are, and when I press enter, there we go, we can see that we've spawned in a Vader character with 7 HP, and down here in the output window, it's the same thing. Okay, let's close this out since we're done with it. Now let's keep going. Like I said earlier, we can actually have a function inside of a struct, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually move this add health into the struct here so that we can use this instead. So let's try doing that now. To create a function inside of a struct, it's basically the same thing as what we have up here. And that is simply by writing the name first, followed by the colon, the keyword function, brackets for any parameters that you might need, and then at least an open and closed curly brace. Don't forget your comma there at the end. All right, so there's what we have here. Now the reason why it's come up yellow here, the text, is because we actually already have a function called addHealth outside of it. So even if it's outside of the script, it still wants to be able to know where it is. Okay, so what we're going to do is simply, we're just going to comment that out. And we are going to write inside here a way to change this myHealth directly. And to do that, it's really simple. To do that, all we need to do is start off with the word self. The keyword self in this case ensures that whatever we put after this dot belongs to the same object and the same instance. And it's just a safety precaution, but definitely something that you should use. In this case, we want to change our myHealth variable. And so let's do that. Okay, there we go. We have no errors now. The only thing left to do here is to actually change here. We don't have dot notation for our addHealth function call, and so let's do that now. Okay, really simple, really quick change. Let's try playing our game and see if that works. Okay, here we are, we're in game. Let's press enter to spawn a character in. Actually, let's spawn in a few characters. Okay, and now let's try changing their health. There we go, we can see that everything changes relative. If you notice from the start of this video that we had quite a few instances, and when I press space, they all changed their health to be the same level. That's a big problem for us. But you can see in this case, whenever I press space, everything changes relative to what they were in a previous value. Let's close this out. And the reason why it changes relative is because we're actually using this self keyword here. It's very useful to know this. Before we move on to constructors, which is the last part of this video, I want to quickly cover an alternative way that you can access these variables inside of a struct without using dot notation. To read a variable inside of a struct, we can use this function here. For those of you who have worked with structs in other programming languages, this here is your getter. Basically, what it does is it reads whatever value you put inside here. Be aware that you need to have a struct name and the name of the variable itself before you can use it. The other one is naturally going to be set. And basically, it's the same as get, except rather than reading it, it writes whatever you put in here. Structured very similar to the get. The only addition here is that you need the struct, of course, you need the name that you're going to set and also the value that you want to set it to. Seeing as I want to keep this video short and beginner friendly, but it's good to know that they exist and that they are there. Okay, the last part here is of course constructors. Basically, a constructor is what creates a struct. However, unlike writing up a struct, we need to create our constructor outside of the object that we're going to make it in. So let's go over to our character script and let's write our constructor function. Let me center this for you guys so you can see it a little easier. And let's write this out. So to write a function, all you need is the function keyword first. The function name, I'm going to call mine stat. Open and close brackets. And the keyword constructor. This tells Gamemaker Studio 2 that this is indeed a constructor and not just a random function. And don't forget your open and close curly braces. Okay, it basically works to create one of these at the very start. Now the reason why it's yellow text here and not blue text is because we actually already have this stat over here. So basically what we're going to do is we'll just comment this out. Okay, so that's done. We don't need that anymore. We don't have to worry about it. Now to get this constructor inside of our game object, what we need to do is we actually need to call it and we need to store it inside of a variable. So in this case, since our constructor is called stat, I need a new variable name. I'll call mine unoriginally, I guess, stats. We need the assignment operator or equal sign, and we need to use the new keyword. This is all a part of using constructors and structs here in Gamemaker Studio, as well as other programming languages. And basically what it means is that it needs a new version or a new instance of a struct. In this case, we need a new stat. Okay, so this works now. We see that we have no references to this, and we can debug it by taking this line of code here. However, we have a bit of a problem here. We are calling for the stat function or the stat constructor rather than the variable name itself. So let's fix that. Okay, so we're expecting it to print out something now. However, before we actually test that out, we need to comment this out. Otherwise, we will get an error and we don't want that. So let's quickly do that. And now let's try testing our game. Remember, all we're looking for is some sort of output in the output window, some sort of text. Let's try spawning our character in now. And we can see, just like before with the structs, we have an open and close curly brace. Fairly simple. It's basically the same functionality as a struct. I'll get to the difference in just a moment. Let's try filling this out with all the same information that we had in our struct from before. So basically, again, it's a copy paste. Unlike structs, for constructors, when we create variables here, we actually need to go back and we need to use the equal sign as well as the semicolon at the end of the code. We need to get rid of all the commas here and change them as appropriate. All right, so now it works and everything looks to be in working order. Okay, that's good. Now that everything's set up, let's minimize this. And now let's go over back to the draw event, uncomment this line, and instead of stat, we're going to change this to stats. And we're also going to change this to stats. Okay, that's all set up. And again, over here, when we press space, we're going to change that to stats as well. Let's now test our code and see if everything runs smoothly and without fail. All right, here we are in the game window. Let's spawn a couple of characters in. No problem so far. Now let's try changing their health. Great. Okay, so looks like everything works out just fine. So now we get to this last part here. What's the difference between using a struct and a constructor? One of the advantages, and one of the biggest advantages of using a constructor, is we can actually set some parameters here. So let's say, for example, we only want to be able to create, I don't know, Luke. We can take this code, and I'm just going to comment this out now. And let's comment this out as well. We can put some parameters in here to influence what will come up for my name and my health. So for example, we can write this. And of course, we need to use them in our constructor somewhere. Okay, that's good. It works. It looks fine. But of course, we need to add some extra parameters inside here. So let's say we only want to create a Luke. And we want to only give him 10 health. Always. This works, but it's basically the same as what we had up here. However, keep in mind, one advantage is that we still have access to this add health function. Let me show you what I mean here when we have it set to just Luke and 10 HP. When I spawn a character in, it's always going to be Luke. And when I press space, it will always increase at the same rate. So how do we end up creating multiple different characters within a single button press? With a little extra work, and yes, I'm about to ad-lib this into this video, but I might as well do it since I said it. What we can do is we can create an initialize function like so. So you might be wondering what is going on here. It's basically going to be the same as up here. That might be true, but let's try deleting this code here, going over to here, and let's try erasing this. All right, here, since this is all ad-lib, this is unscripted, I have no idea what's going to happen next, but basically what we're going to do now is we're going to create a random spawner. So let's go into controller here. And when we press enter, instead of creating a single instance, let's store it in a temporary variable here, a local variable. I'm going to store mine into character here. And then I'm going to run a with statement. Let's add some random element to this, and let's do this. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is create a random enemy spawner. So what we're going to do is when we spawn a character, we are going to roll a random 6-sided die. And if the number is less than, let's say 4, character.stats, because remember, we are storing our constructor, our struct, inside of this variable called stats dot initialize. And we are going to spawn. Now dot initialize is this function all the way up here. Yes, it's getting very messy now, but just bear with me for a second. We have dot initialize, and obviously when we want to set the name and the health. Okay, so that works, or it should work. Let's try putting an else statement in. Okay, so we have some sort of random monster generator here, I guess. And instead of just spawning one random character, why don't we do this as a loop? So basically what this code is going to do is it's going to spawn 5 characters at random. And depending on the number that we get, If it's 4, if it's less than 4, so 0, 1, 2, or 3, it's going to spawn a Wookiee. And if it's anything 4 or higher, then it will spawn a Stormtrooper. So I've written out all this code, but before we try to run it, we actually need to make a quick fix. Up here in the character constructor, we need to change these two variables because right now it's going to throw us an error because it doesn't really know what to do with _name or _health. So let's change these to 0 for now. All right, let's save that out. And let's try running our game. Okay, so here we are in our empty room. Let's try to spawn. Let's see how many characters spawn when we press enter. Okay, there we go. We have 1, 2, 3 Wookiees and 2 Stormtroopers. There we go. That's interesting there. Let's try pressing space now. And we can see that when we press space, the health increases relative to each other. What we've actually created here is a very basic factory here. It's a factory game object, and I'm not going to go into it too much because I think I've done enough ad-libbing, but basically a factory is a way for you to be able to spawn multiple game objects into your scene at a very low cost. So imagine having to initialize a Wookiee and a Stormtrooper every single time you had to spawn it. You can skip all of that extra work by creating a constructor, calling it into a particular object's create event, and then having that set up basically automatically. It makes things a lot easier, and when it comes to runtime events, it's a lot faster. Much easier than having to set things up manually. So I'm just going to leave it here for now. I think I've done enough extra ad-lib for this particular video. I gotta admit, it's great to be back making videos. And if you guys like this video, then I would very much appreciate a like. If you guys want to see more videos in the future, hopefully I can get them out once a week, then please subscribe and turn on your notifications. If you guys have any suggestions, then you can always leave them in the comment section below. Of course, I do have a couple of other videos that people had requested from those community groups, and so I'll get to any suggestions I have here after I'm done with those ones. If you have any questions, you kind of want to get extra clarification, then of course you can always ask them here. But that's it from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye. What's up, guys? It's Blaze from Funbox here, and if you're watching this part of the video, then you're interested in the turn-based combat tutorial series that I had planned, or I at least announced it at the start of this year. In short, what's happened is moving it from past GMS2 versions to 2.3 has actually broken a lot of the code. Fortunately for us though, I've managed to fix most of it. However, there's still a lot that needs to be fixed. Specifically, and if I run this game, specifically what needs to happen is when I click to attack, I can't actually find my buttons that will actually allow me to attack the enemies. But I'm working to get that fixed right now. Another thing that has broken, and we can't actually see it here because it is that broken, is the animation control. So for some reason, I'm not entirely sure what's happened, but playing animations in the previous versions has basically broken. So I have to recreate, or I have to rewrite the animation control code. Everything else, however, works, and this is more or less what it's going to look like visually. I know it's not the most impressive looking thing, but I just wanted to have something that's prototype ready that you guys can definitely build off of. So that's basically where we're at in terms of this tutorial series, or where we are in terms of me fixing it. I hope that you guys are patient with that if you are still interested in it. I'm almost there. We're almost ready to go. So thank you very much for your patience if you have been waiting for that. And if not, if you've already lost interest, then, well, that's entirely my fault. I know I've been working on it as much as I can, but life gets in the way. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you guys haven't already subscribed, then hopefully today, with today's video, I have earned your subscription. If you guys have any suggestions or some comments, then feel free to leave them in the comment section below. That's it from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.